Welcome, weary travellers. This is Kapow. I am Mab, Queen of the Fairies, or as known on this mortal realm as Sonya.
And I am Dumpy, the smelly dwarf, otherwise known as Al. Why did I have to be a smelly dwarf?
You lost the coin toss again. I don't make up the rules.
Really?
No,
Since
I don't.
when?
I don't.
Well, anyway, as you've probably figured out, here at Kings Comics today, we are looking into the realm of fantasy. And we have many magical entertainments for your perusal.
We certainly do. We're going to be taking a look at Volume 1 of Red Sonja, She-Devil with a Sword, and also a gorgeous little book called The Sigh.
Yeah, that's going to be great. And with The Hobbit fast approaching at the cinemas, Ray is going to be along to look at some Tolkien collectibles.
Yeah, but first we're going to have a look at a new graphic called A Flight of Angels.
You know what? This is really hot and itchy.
Yeah, mine's really itchy as well.
Yeah, it's...
I think we went too far.
I think that glow that you've got going on is attracting bugs.
I know. I think I killed that one.
Yeah, you killed that one. Beard is so itchy!
Oh,
God! Now, Sonya,
Yes.
I can tell right now, straight off the bat, without even asking, that you're going to be quite into this book that we're looking at next. Because A Flight of Angels is probably more driven by its artwork than it is by its story.
that is very true, sir. And it makes sense considering how it was conceived by the artist, Rebecca Gay.
Yeah.
But Al, you make that sound like a criticism.
Well, maybe it is, a little. Look, don't get me wrong. Like you say, the artwork in this is quite stunning and varied, but I did have some reservations on the story.
Okay, well, let's talk about the story just for a little
Sure,
moment.
let's do that. Yeah.
Okay. A Flight of Angels is based around a group of fairy creatures who find an injured angel who's kind of crash-landed into their part of the forest.
Yeah, as you do.
As you do.
You know, you just finding
Walking
angels
along,
all the
there's
time.
an angel.
Yeah, and up until that point, I got to say, I was quite excited by this book.
Yep.
You know, I opened it up on the first page. It had that bit said something like, "Occasionally there are battles in the sky."
It's a beautiful way to start a story.
I love that. That was so evocative. And then you get to that first image of the fallen angel, and it's so stunning.
It's a striking image, and
really
it does
is.
follow through all with the artwork throughout
Sure,
this book.
yeah.
Even more impressive, I found, though, was when the fairies started having kind of a tribunal, and they're all telling stories about angels. The art style for each story changed throughout this book.
Yeah. The thing is, though, that's where this book started to lose me a little bit.
Really?
Oddly enough. Now, each of these stories within a story are written by different people.
Yes.
And they're all quite familiar in terms of content. You've got the Adam and Eve story, but there we find out that the snake in the garden is actually an angel. So that's a bit of a twist there. You've got the war in heaven that leads to half the heavenly host falling to hell.
Yeah.
And, you know, showing that some of the angels become fairies.
That's
so
how
there's a
we
link,
get
link
the
up
Fae,
there.
yes.
But the thing is that the stories aren't bad. I mean, the one by Bill Willingham of Fables fame,
Quite cool.
I really enjoyed that one.
Yep.
There's a bar that only angels are allowed into called Pinheads. That's very clever, you know, and I really enjoyed that one.
Yep.
But I didn't feel like there was enough of a through line with these stories.
I do understand what you're saying, but it's more kind of a collection of stories. It's an anthology rather than a full
I
story.
don't think it is.
No?
See, I don't think it is. These are not a series of unconnected stories. These are, you know, there's a framing story,
Yep.
and there's all of the ones that are connected to it. So I think there did need to be a stronger arc.
Look, for me, I think the most part the stories I found quite strong. I did love Pinheads. I thought that was a
That was
great
clever,
story.
yeah.
But I think my favourite one was a Russian one, which had a whole Death and the Maiden kind of feel, which for some reason I've been obsessed with those kind of stories since I was a kid. I really like that kind of genre.
Yeah.
And the art, I can't talk enough about the art in this book.
Yeah.
She's done such a beautiful job changing the style, the colour palette, even how the angels look and the watercolours or
Yeah,
crayons
the different
or
style
the
of
different
angel,
styles,
the
the
different-
detail
yeah.
that is in some of these panels is quite remarkable. And I often found myself just kind of flicking back and going,
Yeah.
I'm just going to stare at this for a little while.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a book for everyone. It's quite a soft book. It's very romantic and it's a story about angels.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit more soft and rosy tinted.
You've got to imagine. Yeah.
But I still think it's a worthwhile for people to pick up and have a look. If for nothing else, don't read the stories, just look at the pictures. It's so beautifully done. And I quite liked the story that was going through. I dug it. I'm definitely giving this one a buy.
Okay, well, look, I'm definitely not going to argue with you in terms of the art.
Good.
I can't fault it. It is top shelf stuff by Rebecca Gay. She's the variety, as you
So
say,
amazing.
is very impressive.
Yeah.
That she's taken all these stories and just changed her style based on that is great to see.
Yeah.
But as I say, I do have reservations about the story. I would have liked more of an arc through them, but more than that, I felt like the framing story needed to be stronger.
The one about
needed to
fairies.
give a point.
Yep.
And the characters didn't seem to be fully realised enough.
Okay.
They seemed to just be there to tell the stories, which I understand that's their function, but it needed to be stronger in terms of the frame.
Okay.
So, look, it's still, the artwork's fantastic. I'm definitely still giving this one a borrow, but I just wanted it to, as I say, I wanted the art and the story to be as strong as each other.
Fair enough.
Now, we are doing this with everybody. We are asking your favourite fantasy thing, whether it's a movie, a book, whatever, comic, you know.
There's so many for me to choose from. I'm such a fantasy geek from a small child.
Yeah.
From watching movies like Labyrinth and Princess Bride, right through to now. Like, I'm a big fan of the Dresden File books and the Codex Alera. But there is one book that, ever since I got it when I was probably about 12, I think, I have read it pretty much every year, and it's Magician by Raymond E. Feast.
Of course.
I love it, and every time I read it, no matter how many times I read it, I get something new from it. It's my favourite book of all time.
It's quite an epic, isn't it?
Love it.
Yeah,
I love
it's fascinating. Okay, cool.
Ray!
Go, you go on, I'll fend them off!
Okay, so we're about to be delved back into middle... Ray!
What?
Dragon!
Where?
Right, now that you're back with us, Ray.
Tricked me.
Yeah, I did.
Hey guys, alright, so given that the Hobbit is about to be released, well, not long now.
Not long
only
now.
A couple more weeks.
Yep.
Thought we'd take a look at some of the goodies. Oh yeah, that they're available. So, firstly, let's take a look at this prop replica of Balin's flat-bladed mace, and we also have Uklat and Umraz, the two single-handed axes that Dwalin carries on his back. Now, both are made by Weta. Now, what's that, you ask? Well, the company gets its name from an insect called the Weta. Now, specifically, it's New Zealand's coolest little monster. It's a bizarre and prickly prehistoric cricket. Now, some of you still might not know who Weta is, but I can guarantee that you've seen at least one of their films. They are a special effects and prop-making company based in Miramar in New Zealand, and their most notably, or the most notable film is, or series, The Lord of the Rings.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm pretty sure most of you have seen that. They did the props and the costumes and the weapons and the miniature models, and they may have even erected a new mountain for New Zealand.
Just because they can.
Just because
really.
they can.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, they certainly know their stuff. I
Yes.
mean, these weapons here look great.
They're amazing, yes, I agree with you. I was a little disappointed though at first. A bit confused because when I think of a replica, I think of something that's really heavy, and because in the films you look at them and you think, man, they must be some really heavy weapons, and you want a replica, and I thought that maybe that they're just cheaper versions made from cheaper materials. But these are quite different. They've managed still to capture the complexity of the detail. Now, these weapons replicate the exact techniques and artistry used in the films. What I like best are the axes more than the mace, which looks a bit more like a sword to me. I don't think it looks as real as the axes either. And up close, they don't do as much for me. I think some of the work in the handles seem a little slapdash, but that's just me.
But these were used in filming, and through the lens and even at a distance, I think they look pretty authentic.
Yes.
I love the detail that are on some of these. Like
Yes.
the little nicks in the blades of the axes looks really cool. I must admit, I do like the axes more than I like the mace, the flat
Yes.
mace as well. It's a very cool weapon, but
Yes.
there's something about axes. They're kind of cool.
Yeah.
Plus, they will take a decent kind of beating, so you can have your own
Absolutely.
little replica battles with your friends. They're buys from me. I like them.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. They're made from a high-impact urethane, and that means they can withstand a heck of a lot of punishment before they start to take any damage. And also, if you did happen to hit one of your friends, it's not going to
not
cause
gonna
a
hurt
heck of
that
a lot of
much.
a lot of pain either. And they come with these awesome mounts that you can put on your wall. Each of the weapons come with those. I think that's a nice feature as well to have on display. That said, I'm still going to give it a borrow. It just doesn't quite make it over the line for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've done our weapons. What
Yes.
about these guys?
Okay, we have the Bilbo and, of course, the Gandalf
Yes.
6th scale polystone statues. Gandalf was sculpted by Stephen Saunders and Bilbo by Bridget West. Now, it takes approximately 400 to 500 hours to design, sculpt, model make, mold, and paint the prototype for each new character. Now, Gandalf comes with a removable hat for alternate display, which is really nice. I'll start with Bilbo though. Firstly, I like the detail in the shorts and the vest and the smaller touches in the tie. There's a lovely combination of colours, and the sword sting looks great. Now, I'm not so much a fan of his expression though. Something about it doesn't ring true. He has his sword out in defense, but is he scared or infuriated? I kind of can't tell. It looks more like he's wondering how the sword got in his hand in the first place.
No, I don't like his expression that much either. I tend to agree with you. You're not quite sure what he's doing. With the bases, they're fairly sparse, but I kind of like the fact that they've got the engraving of the kind of first few pages of the books. You've got the Misty Mountain, you've got the dragon in the background. It's a bit reminiscent from when I opened those books, and you look at that map and you know where you're going when you read the story. I love the material look on his coat. I think they've done a really lovely job making it look cord. Hobbits are not really meant to be warriors.
No.
And I like that in his stance, that's kind of reflected, that kind of timidness of him.
Yes, yeah. He's not quite sure of himself.
Yeah, he's not quite sure.
Yeah.
He's a bit scared. Ultimately though, sorry Bilbo, but you are a borrow from me.
Well, for me, it doesn't even make it quite there. I'm going to have
Aw.
to give it a berry. I wouldn't pick this one up at all. The Gandalf, on the other hand, is a bit of a different story. It's a much more interesting figure. Grave concern and wisdom and power emanate from his expression, and I really love the lines in his face and the detail in his beard. Even though this is another more static piece like the Bilbo, there's still a small amount of movement that sweeps around in his cloak, and that's really nice. And I also like the leaning on his staff. It gives this illusion of vulnerability, but at the same time, this hint of dexterity, which seems quite dangerous as well. It puts you a little bit on edge. So this particular figure I'm going to give a buy. I really like the Gandalf.
Me too. Smaller details like the staff and the hint of a sword behind him are nice touches. The flow and colour of his cloak as well is really lovely. Even how they've made the bottom part of the cloak a little darker in areas to depict the wear and tear over time and, of course, masses of travel. I do prefer him with his hat on rather than off, but yeah, Gandalf is definitely a buy from me.
Great.
Cool.
Can I go back to playing now?
Yes. I might even join you.
Yes. Let's go find Al.
Okay.
All right.
Al!
An important area of fantasy, and often our very first contact with the genre, are fairy tales. You know, there's classic fables with really important life lessons like don't talk to strangers and always keep your promises and don't eat that apple, it's poisonous.
That last one,
Yes.
that's come in handy
Very
for me
important.
a lot. I can't eat an apple to this day.
Terrified of fruit.
Yeah, but I can't be the only one who grew up watching Jim Henson's The Storyteller.
I love that show.
I was obsessed with that
Yeah.
show, you know, it scared me, it gave me laughs, I watched a lot, I still do. But I love that type of story.
Yes.
You know, that fable type of story with, you know, the rhythm and the flavour that it had. And that's why I was so pleased to read a new book that actually evokes the same feelings. The Sigh by Marjane Satrapi.
Now, some of our viewers may be more familiar with her other work, Persepolis, which is, again, a beautiful
great,
piece.
yeah.
The Sigh is more of your classic fable, your classic fairy tale, and it's done so well that I kind of got halfway through the book and went, wait, do I know this story? Is this an adaptation or is this a new story?
You do kind of go, it has that feeling, it hits that so well.
It
You do
does.
feel that. I mean, we've got a widowed merchant with 3 daughters of varying levels of attractiveness.
The youngest being the cleverest.
Well, of course, has to be. The youngest has to be the cleverest.
Yep.
We have an unexpected outcome to a bargain.
Yes.
We have a mysterious creature who calls himself
He's
who
lovely.
is a sigh, a living sigh,
living
from the
sigh.
land of sighs,
Yeah.
which is lovely.
It's a beautiful
it's quite
image.
evocative,
It
isn't
is.
it? Just that phrase by itself.
Yep.
You know, we have a journey into mystery. We have young love torn asunder by a misunderstanding. It really is quite a charming little story. It really,
is.
I got a bit of a fuzzy on it.
Yeah.
It's more of an illustrated storybook
Yep.
than a graphic novel, though. If we're going to be
Brutally
factual.
honest, yeah, but that's not a bad thing.
No.
the artwork in this, Satrapi has illustrated as well, and she's done such a lovely job with these quite simplistic images, almost seemingly done in crayon and charcoals. But that's kind of where the charm in the illustration lies. I also feel like this is a book that should be read out loud, either to yourself or to someone, just because it does have that beautiful kind of classic fable feel and the repetitive of the themes.
And it's got a cadence to it. That does feel like it's something that's supposed to be spoken.
Yes,
I know what you mean.
The 3 daughters, and you've got the 3 trials, and there's that kind of repetition.
There are those repeated themes and those focal points that you recognise.
Yep.
You know, we've got important storytale themes like faithfulness and self-sacrifice and the wicked receiving their comeuppance.
It's always satisfying.
Which happens 3 separate occasions in these 3 trials.
In the 3
as you
trials,
say, which
that's
is
right.
another trope that I really love to see resurrected here. Look, this is probably not going to be for everyone, obviously. It's quite a soft story, but that's lovely. I mean, you'll get to the end of this and have a smile on your face, and you'll be reminiscing about your childhood.
Yeah.
So, look, I'm definitely giving this one a buy.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. You kind of close that book and you look at it with its beautiful silver border and the lovely shade of blue that the book is. And it does make you smile, and it does make you think of all those kind of stories that you read as a kid.
Yeah.
It's really, really lovely. If you're more into your high concept stories, I'd suggest having a look at Persepolis instead. But I would like everyone to have a look at the Sigh, though, because it is such a charming book. It's definitely a buy from me as well. Now, Al, you've sprung it on me. I'm springing it on you. What is your favourite fantasy? Story, movie?
It's a big question, isn't it? You know, because again, like you, I grew up reading a lot of fantasy stuff, and you know, there was all movies that I loved. Things like Willow was, you know, watched that every weekend when I was a kid. But in terms of fantasy novels, it would probably have to be in that area for my favourite.
Your favourite?
You know, started with Dragonlance, went into Forgotten Realms, various other
Always
things
cool.
like that. But if I have to pick the one that I read the most number of times, it'd probably be Legend by David Gemmell.
Nice.
I was obsessed with Gemmell for ages 13 up till 17, I think, and read everything that he wrote. So yeah, it'd probably be Legend.
Legend is the one.
Oh, great story.
Awesome. Okay, we are doing our final King's Comic chat today for the year. We've got the lovely Nada and, of course, our favourite Scott here. And, well, you're on all the time, so you've become a favourite. So, obviously, we're talking about fantasy genre. So, you know, how well do you think that fantasy fits within the world of comic books?
I think the two marry up really well. I mean, obviously, you know, when it comes to fantasy, I guess it's a pretty broad word
it's
for someone
define.
to define to begin with. I think, you know, when we think fantasy, we think myth, legend, you know, historical things.
Sword and sorcery. Science fiction.
You can go into the sort of the occult kind of thing, ghosts and things like that as well in that area.
I guess generally it's things like magic and things like that. So.
That's the immediate thought, isn't it? It's big sword, somebody throwing lightning. That's you know that's what you immediately picture.
Well, that's true. But I mean, we're seeing a huge kind of build in support for things like the Marvel with the Avengers movies and things. Now we've got the Hobbit coming up soon. So do you think you're going to see a similar kind of growth in the fantasy readers? Perhaps.
Okay, I'll take it up.
No, I'm taking that one.
I'm the Kiwi. I'm the New Zealander. I know. Yes. Okay. I'm from Auckland, which officially over there means I'm an orc, though I look much better than
Love that.
Absolutely.
Yes. But definitely that is something that we are going to be so much looking forward to. The love that's been put into it, you can just see, and we're going to see that when we see it on the film. The quality of it alone is just going to the IMAX theatre, just enjoying it, and I'm going to feel like I'm home in more ways than one. Because the love of fantasy and just that New Zealand green and just a beautiful story done well.
Yeah, I mean they're classic books. My mum used to read me The Hobbit before I went to bed.
Nice, me
so
too.
So yeah, I mean you know it's going to be over 3 films, like I've said, and contrary to how a lot of people feel, I'm looking forward to sitting down, relaxing to a 3-hour movie of just fantasy goodness and just enjoying it for what it is and enjoying the visuals, and you know it's I guess it's the pinnacle in fantasy so far. I mean you know, we can go way back to, you know, the 80s sort of fantasy sword and sandals kind of, you know, gladiator stuff or Conan stuff. And now, you know, we see, you know, better advances in filmmaking technology, we can
Indeed.
get that
Sure.
decent fantasy sort of fix.
Any
better.
fantasy stuff that you've been sort of looking at recently in comics? Anything? Because I know Saga's been quite a cool
Saga's,
thing
yeah.
with sort of
Saga-
a crossover between fantasy and
I've
sci-fi.
been so happy. I mean, so many things we get in after other people find out about it, like
Yeah.
Why the Last Man
Yep.
Yeah.
and Preacher, and now it's a chance for everybody to get in from the start.
Yeah, on the
It's
ground
just-
floor. Yeah.
and running, and it's such a beautiful. Fiona Staples, I adore her artwork.
Yeah.
She's finally got a most incredible writer as well. Brian K. Vaughan, he is a fantastic.
Isn't he?
Isn't he?
Yeah.
And I like the feeling, something I haven't felt for a while. I'll admit it, I've gone a bit jaded my age.
Sure.
To look forward to the next issue.
Yeah.
When's the next issue coming up?
Yeah.
I want to see what happens next. Or to put down a comic book and then go, I'm going to read that again.
I got to pick that up again.
I'm going to read that again.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this so much. I'm going to read it again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to read it again.
No, I've been getting the same thing. with
We've
Saga.
done that.
Yeah.
I mean, we looked at Saga earlier, and it
Yeah.
just blew us away.
It really
It's
did,
so
yeah.
amazing. Are there particular publishers within comic book that kind of focus on fantasy more than others, or do you think it's kind of a broad,
well,
everyone
outside
looks at it?
DC and Marvel, okay, but Dynamite, Image, I'd say they're not afraid to try out new things.
Yep.
Dark
Sure.
Horse, actually, they aren't the new boys in the block. They've been doing it faithfully.
Long
Yeah.
time,
Sure.
A
yeah.
long time. Everything from.
I think, well, DC and Marvel have those obvious ones. Marvel's got Thor, maybe.
Yeah,
DC's
yeah.
got
Just that
Demon
mythological
and,
area
yeah.
of fantasy.
and,
Yeah.
and things like that. But Dark Horse is a good example of it.
Yeah.
I mean, like we were saying, Conan we mentioned earlier or Red Sonja is
Of course.
two very popular sort
Really
of fantasy
big, yeah.
series. You could even put it down to things like Warlord of Mars. Well, that's Dynamite Comics. You've got Usagi Yojimbo from which is great, and
Wonder
there's-
Woman, DC.
That's right.
It's no longer Laurence Olivier in a toga.
No.
This is dark, cruel, ancient Greek gods.
Yeah.
Which make for a much better story.
Much more
really.
interesting
That's-
story.
Selfish, don't
Yeah.
care who they kill.
Yeah, that's what you want.
Petty agendas, family
Yep.
feuds, and Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
It's all together.
I
It's
think
great.
I think we tend to all grow up with myths and legends, whether it's the Greek myth, those fantastic Greek myths and legends. Growing up watching Clash of the Titans, things like that. But then
So
you've got your Grimm fairy tales and fables and things like that.
See, that's Fables has been running for quite some time now and has built quite a huge base, and it's and that all comes back to our those fairy tales that we grew up reading and
Yeah.
giving them a new lease of life. I think fantasy in particular can do that to those old stories more than anything else. Yes.
Well, in the early
Yes,
days,
yeah.
it was the Disney effect, which helped bring them on the screen. But in some ways, it restricted people because that's what they assumed that Alice was always
Was going to be.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Snow
Yeah.
White would be like her. Fables came along and said, "Hold on, let's have another version.
Have
of
another look
this."
at that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool.
They're pretty open for interpretation. You've got TV shows like Grimm and
Yep.
Once Upon a Time.
Absolutely.
And
They've
it makes
been
you
very popular.
makes you wonder how long they can last. Doing stories derivative of old fairy tales and
Yeah.
things like that. Whereas Fables just kept the ball rolling and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
things like that.
Take
And
it away.
Very clever ways of keeping it going.
Now, I mean, what do you find? We're asking everybody.
We're asking everybody.
this.
It's an important question.
What is your favourite thing from the fantasy genre? Whatever that, whether
Book,
it's a TV
TV show doesn't matter.
pair of shoes, whatever.
Pair of shoes.
Dragons.
Dragons.
Dragons, they're so cool.
Yeah.
The magic, it's the journeys. A lot of really good fantasy is a journey.
journey
It
story,
It
yeah.
takes you through, and
For me, I gotta admit, there's a bit more science fiction, especially European science fiction. Mobius, I miss him. I miss him. Incal, Jodorowsky, when he's writing as well. When those two get together, it just blows my mind. I'm sorry to sound so 70s cliche, but it's true.
But it's true.
I didn't realise the worlds out there, the fantasy worlds, were that incredible until I read that.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for coming on and having a chat to us about our fantasy realms that we're
Yes.
creating. It's been
Indeed.
really lovely having you guys coming on and chatting to us throughout the year. Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, we couldn't do a fantasy special without including some of the classic fantasy fare, like swords and shields,
And magic and cultists.
dark gods and giant snakes.
Yes, and luckily, we managed to find a title that contains all of the above.
Indeed.
Which is fantastic. Red Sonja, She-Devil with a Sword, Volume 1. Now, I mean, for God's sake, the sword, the shield, and the giant snake are all on the cover.
Indeed it is, including also Red Sonja's iconic costume, highly impractical chainmail bikini.
Yes, well, come on, let's call
Get
a
it out
spade a
there,
spade
in the
here.
air.
That's always been an aspect of the character.
It has.
And it always has to be. You can't get rid of that.
No.
And honestly, I do think that artist Mel Ruby he doesn't dwell on it over much.
He doesn't. He's actually pretty tasteful.
Yeah.
I think it worked out really, really well. Ruby did do a good job with that one. And the writers, Mike Carey and Michael Avon Oeming, have justified it in quite a funny way as well. And it, it makes sense. Apparently men don't notice the sword until it's too late.
You wouldn't, would you? I think there's a nice dry sense of humour
There is.
to the
It runs
dialogue.
through the book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially with Sonya, but with with the other characters as well.
Yeah.
And I would expect no less from these two writers.
Absolutely.
They're tried and tested guys, and I've loved their work before.
Yes.
I mean, this is just all up. It's a fun, violent ride.
Indeed it is. Now, poor Sonya has run afoul of a city full of fanatics who are all praying to this dark god, Borat Nafori, and she inadvertently, as you do, gets wrapped up in the war to overthrow their overlord, the Celestial.
Yeah, I think it's a really good setup, and it provides endless opportunities for slicing and stabbing and generalised violence.
It's awesome.
Which is really what you want from a Red Sonja story, isn't
Yeah.
it? When all's said and done.
Yep.
I think, Ruby's done a great job, especially on the action scenes.
Yes.
There's a really nice sense of motion and impact.
Yeah, which is what I really like. It's one of my kind of things. If action scenes don't seem to have cause and effect, it annoys me.
Yeah.
In this, there is strong impact. You know what's going on, which is really useful, especially in some of the more chaotic battle scenes.
Yeah,
They can
yeah.
get a bit, whoa.
It can get a bit carried away if you don't know what's happening
Yeah.
and who's doing what to who.
But Ruby does it
Yeah,
spot
he
on.
does.
Yep.
And I think if I have any criticisms, it would probably be on the art, but it's just that some of the faces are a little inconsistent.
Yep.
I mean, you always know who's who, so it's not even
It's
really
not
a big deal.
No, it's just occasionally the shape of a
Yeah,
face
it's a
is
bit different, or
Yep.
the features are a little bit off kilter.
Yep.
It's rare, but it's in there, so I
Yep.
felt it worth mentioning. Look, overall, I really enjoyed this one. I had good fun reading this book,
Yep.
and I think it's well worth a look. I love me a bit of hack and slash, and this book delivers it in spades.
It does.
So yeah, I'm definitely giving this one a buy.
Yeah, look, I had so much fun reading this as well. I have read a few Red Sonjas in the past, but the thing that I really liked about this book is that if you haven't, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can pick up this volume and just jump straight on in, and you're going to learn everything you need to know about Sonya and about the world that she inhabits.
yeah.
It's a really nice self-contained story, as well as the beginning of a great run.
I think so,
Which
yeah,
I think
yeah.
is really cool. And the art, it's great.
Yeah.
The action, hilariously good fun. And my favourite thing, it's got extras.
Oh, you do love your
I
bit
love
of
my
bonuses
extras.
at the
I
end.
do.
Yeah.
At the back of Red Sonja, you get a whole range of covers from all different artists, and it's wonderful to see how different artists
The different
interpret
takes, yeah.
Sonya. You got little cutesy poo Sonyas.
That was a
and-
little weird for me.
Oh, I like cutesy poo Sonya. She was
Okay,
cool.
yeah.
You got like really hardcore, scary Sonyas.
Yeah, that cross blades one.
Amazing.
That's
I
pretty
love
cool.
that
Yeah,
piece.
yeah.
And plus, there's a little dialogue between Carey and Oeming, which is really worth a read. It's quite
Yeah,
amusing.
yeah.
It's a buy from me as well. I love the Red Sonja.
Excellent.
Now, there's one person that we haven't asked.
My God, you're right.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Which is, of course, our director who's sitting down there. So,
Yes.
Ben, what is your favourite fantasy thing?
If such a thing can be
If such a
said, I
thing
know it's not
exists.
really your genre.
No, I actually don't like fantasy, but I have heard Star Wars referred to as fantasy.
That is a cop-out.
I think that's
Isn't it?
cheating.
That's cheating. That's completely cheating. We're not going to force you on that one, but I'm going to put it out there.
That's a
cheat.
cheat.
You people back us up,
Yeah.
because I think that's a total con.
Okay, now Ray, everyone's answered this. Our director answered it, even though he cheated. So it's your turn now. What's your favourite fantasy book, story, series? What is
Okay,
it?
well, it's a book.
Yeah.
It's Magician by Raymond E. Feast.
No, that's my favourite.
No, well, now I've got it, so it's my
no,
favourite.
it's my favourite.
Right,
Okay,
mine.
okay,
No,
guys,
it's mine.
guys. Before this just devolves into a slanging match, there are other things that we need to cover here.
Okay.
Now,
Right.
our Lovesac competition
Oh, yes.
has closed. The entries have closed.
Yes.
But we will be announcing the winner very soon on the Book of
Stay
Face.
tuned.
So keep an eye out for that.
Very exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, we have come to the end of the episode and
Yep.
the final for this year. We're done.
It's gone
Crazy.
very quickly.
It has. It's
Yeah.
been a crazy year.
It's been a massive year, and our first year doing Kapow.
Yep.
It's been so great. Both, it's been great in front of and behind the camera. We've got everybody working on this. We've appreciated everybody's help so much, and you are loyal
Kapowians.
Kapowians. You guys, we've loved all your input, your views, your likes. And all your suggestions on what we should look at have been so helpful. We love getting those.
Yeah, we like
so thank
getting
you.
all that feedback. It's really cool. Also, I'd love to thank our sponsors.
Yes.
Kings Comics, of course, who let us in here every week, which
Without
we
fail.
really appreciate.
Yes.
Also, Lovesac and Totally Irreverent. We couldn't do it without you guys, so thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
And we'll be back in the middle of January with a new season and a few very exciting announcements,
Oh,
which we
yes.
can't give away just
Just
yet.
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 Oh, next year's going to be huge.
It
There
is.
is so much stuff going on. I mean, we've got Superman, we've got new Batman animated, we've got Iron Man 3, we've got Star Trek. I can't cope. There's so many
Breathe.
things going on.
All right, settle.
It's fine.
All right.
Now we need to wrap up
Yes.
because I am emotionally exhausted.
Yes.
I need to retire to a warm blanket and a friendly therapist, maybe a hot chocolate, something.
Hot chocolate,
I
definitely.
second that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything this year, guys, and we will see you in 2013.
Bye.
Bye.